Welcome. You're listening to the Leading Hope Podcast. My name is VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us, taking time out of your day to become a better leader. If you're new, we release a new episode every Wednesday morning. We would love for you to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. I think it's the Pocket for you. Pocket
Cast.
There it is, Pocket Cast. He's not getting paid by them, but maybe we can figure that out sooner or later. Also, share this with a friend on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Rate and review on Apple Podcast. Won't believe how that helps get this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders just like you, trying to get better like us. And visit leadinghope.online and get updates. Find out more about the Leading Hope community. Episode today is 196. You've titled this, Stay Curious.
Yeah.
Stay curious.
I did. Stay curious.
Not start curious, not be curious.
Well, I hope you start curious.
Stay.
Like, if you don't even start curious, then you've got issues that I don't think I can help with.
We can do an episode on
Yeah, I'll say we need to switch it back to from episodes back to sessions, and there's something else.
Maybe we should have a spinoff.
So just kind of like the prompting for this, I was meeting with a friend recently, good friend, who had served in the past as a consultant for like businesses. I think it was, he said, in the 5 million to 90 million range, somewhere within there. My numbers could be completely off. Could be 500 million to 9 bazillion. I don't really know.
I love a bazillion.
Yeah.
It's my favorite number.
Love a bazillion. And I said I wanted to meet with him because I wanted to know like how he did stuff.
Sure.
And I'm like,
I do too if he's working with bazillions.
I'm like 6 questions in, and he just goes, "You said you wanted to meet. What are you really after?"
Oh, good.
And which was like,
That's your question.
I was like, that's a.
You just turned my question.
Well,
on
the funny thing is that I was like, oh, let me write that down.
Yeah.
That was good. And it was just funny because it was like my response to him was just, if you're able to do this work, you know something that I don't know.
Yeah.
And I want to figure out what that is. Like, there is something you're aware of, or I was just like, honestly, more than anything else, I want to know how you think when you're meeting with these groups, when you're going into these companies. What are you looking for? What are you messing with? What are you asking questions about? What data do you want? Because I don't know I'm not looking to do what you do, but I don't know how to do what you do. And so there's obviously something you see that I am completely oblivious to, and I would like to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And it was just interesting to me that he was like, his response, wonderful guy. He's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I love that. I love the fact, though, that you don't, oh man, I don't know where this episode is going, but I love that you didn't need to know exactly what he did or how he did it. You wanted to know how he thinks.
Yeah.
Right? And people are taken back by that because I think sometimes they don't even know that that's the most important part of the equation.
Yeah. But like what was really fascinating to me while I was asking him is I was initially just asking questions about his work within it. And it was like, well, I'm not like most. I didn't really have like a set program, a set routine, hey, here's the plan that I worked in one area that I'll just now give to every other area. So I was like, well, now I'm really intrigued.
Sure.
Because when some people have a plan, typically what they've done is they've taken a business model from one company and assumed it will work with all companies in all contexts. And it doesn't.
It does not.
It's the pastors who attempt to pastor the same church at 7 different churches.
Yeah.
Well, at my last church, we did this, and then at the last church, and I'll just try to recreate the same culture, systems, and strategies and vision absolutely everywhere, even though it actually has to be. That's another podcast for another day.
Yeah.
But what that got me thinking about was just the sense of like, he was surprised at the level of curiosity without looking for something specific.
Right.
Which kind of showed me that was more rare. That wasn't a common thing that's there in everyone. And that actually, like, this is just kind of how I go through the loop. That realization made me really discouraged. And so I just started writing on it and said, like, man, this is what happens when you are curious. These are the reasons for why people should be curious. So I just kind of want to walk through 3 different ideas today as to why it's so important to stay curious.
I love it.
So idea number 1, let's jump into it. absence of curiosity is actually an initial step towards cynicism. And so this is something that like we know. If I talk about things that we know, because I may have phrased it a little differently. Curiosity is the antidote to cynicism. Cynicism is the belief, not just that everything will be worse, but that you know how it works. You would not come to the conclusion that things will be worse if you were not also completely confident that you know how it works. And so if we would get like what cynicism is at the core, it will get worse because I know how it works. And because I know how it works, I know it will continue to get worse. And so if you want to combat cynicism in your own life, the response is to be curious, to ask questions, to assume you're new, to assume you don't understand. But we can also take that, like that makes sense. I explained that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Same page. We can also say that the absence of curiosity is then the first step towards cynicism. Ooh. If you're no longer assuming there's stuff you don't know, if you're not intrigued by the things that you don't know, what you are doing is you are starting down that path towards cynicism. And just to acknowledge on the front end, you're headed that direction.
If you come to me and the first thing is, especially if it's something within something I'm responsible for, and it says, hey, do it this way, and it's based off of your own, if you haven't asked a question first, it's one of my rules. And Matt D's could probably be the one that is the one that probably gets this the most. I don't ever tell him what to do until I've asked 5 questions.
Yep.
Like, and he probably gets annoyed sometimes. Like, why are you asking me all these questions? Because I can't give you a direction unless I understand your entire flow and process.
Yes,
right.
That's exactly right.
I'm literally curious about why we do everything.
Yep.
Right. Even I'm curious, why do I do? Right. Like, and then because I'm asking these questions, I'm able to actually derive. Now, it's not always right.
Yep.
But at least I have some kind of educated formula to get to it. And I'm literally curious. I want to know about what all this stuff is.
Yeah. No, that's a great statement. So I just want to put that out there first off, that the absence of curiosity is actually an initial step towards cynicism. Second idea for today, that your next breakthrough probably, I can almost say definitely, but I'll just say probably here because I'm not completely convinced, probably does not come from a field you already know.
Yeah.
Like if you're actually going to experience breakthrough in your life, it's probably not going to come from information that you were already aware of. Because if it would have led to a breakthrough, you would have already applied it. And so if you're going to experience a breakthrough, what actually has to happen is it needs to come from a field that you aren't aware of. Let me give you just 2 examples real quickly. I learned about lead lag indicators from a friend who is an insurance agent.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was insurance agents.
Yeah.
Live and die.
Yeah.
Like I say that like literally.
Yeah.
Like
tell people just the lead lag real quick so they understand. Just
lead lag tells you what has happened.
Yep.
Okay. Lead are predictable and influenceable. Okay. So they tell you what is going to happen and you have an impact on them.
And you measure those.
So the simplest way to understand it is your scale versus counting calories.
Yep.
Your counting calories are predictable and influenceable. The scale tells you what happened. If you are counting calories,
good.
You would never be surprised by what the scale says. And we've all been there.
Yep.
At times we sound odd and went, whoa!
Yeah, but we measure that.
Yes,
both
exactly.
lead and lag. And that came from an insurance agent.
Yeah. And
no
so,
idea. I didn't know that. You never said that before.
I was talking to him about his business and what he does. And he keeps talking about leads. And he shared leads over and over again in conversions and these other pieces. Right. And I'm like, you need to explain to me what is happening because I do not understand this. And he shared about the number of, we know this percentage of calls will lead to this percentage of meetings and this percentage of meetings will lead to this level of sales. And so we're not ever really focused on sales. What we're tracking is activity.
Yep. Because
we know the right activity will lead to the right results. Brilliant. And by connecting these, and I was just like,
did he have the bazillions?
But like as we went through it, it was just this realization that church world lives and dies on lag indicators.
Absolutely.
We know how many people were there. We know how much money people did give.
Right.
We know how many steps people did take.
Right.
we never track the other side. And it was just like this whole sense of like you have opened a whole new world to me. I'm not going to break into Aladdin, just to be clear.
No, yeah.
But like, you have opened this whole new world to me that I didn't know existed, and I didn't know this is how it worked.
Yep.
A lot of the data analysis stuff that I have understood over the years comes from engineers.
Yeah.
Pastors are not great at data analysis.
Yeah, no.
If anything, they disregard it and says it's not spiritual enough. Yeah. But the reality is like, hey, learning from engineers how different data works and how it impacts other pieces. I've been like, I didn't know.
Right.
And so I just have that belief that like, if you would I believe every field has an expertise in something. Like every job has something that they are absolutely phenomenal at that applies to almost every other job.
Yeah.
And I believe that if you're going to experience breakthrough, you need to figure out what that is from these different fields and then apply it to your own.
I want to zero in on this insurance agent, not him specifically, but you had I think the important thing is you had a desire to know more. That's to stay curious, right? To know more. But then it wasn't just a desire, you actually did it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that is the stay curious, the desire with the do.
My curiosity was met with execution.
Right. Like you wasn't just, I'm just curious about this. And then you found out and you're like, great, I know it now.
Yep.
No, it was, I'm curious. And then my curiosity led to action.
If I could, let me just take it one step back.
Sure.
Like sometimes I'll hear people make this stupid phrase and they'll just say like, people are boring. No, people are fascinating.
Sure.
Boring people ask boring questions.
Yeah.
And assume that everyone is boring. Like, I had a friend years ago. He would always say like this. He'd say, everyone is a geek about something.
Oh, yeah.
He'd say like, we call like people geeks because they're into whatever comic books or whatever else. He goes, no,
Anime.
you've got
Nerds.
He's like, you got sports geeks.
Yeah.
Like, what are they? They can rattle off stats.
NBA geeks.
They're geeks. Oh yes, I'm an NBA geek. There's movie geeks.
Yeah.
There's comic book geeks.
Leadership geeks.
Yes, everyone's a geek about something.
Yeah.
And I really believe that as you like dive deeper into this and you begin to understand, like there's a world of information and understanding how the world works that you don't have.
Right.
And everyone has a little piece of that you're unaware of. And as soon as you figure that out, it's going to be so much better for you.
Absolutely.
And interesting.
For sure. Absolutely.
So I want to get into idea 3. And this is, I think this is important. It's the sense that like you can learn something from anywhere.
Oh.
And I dislike the phrase that you can learn something from anyone, because I just think I don't know. I just think it's
Untrue.
overused and it's trite. And I do think you can learn something from anyone, but it's such like I don't think people actually believe it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And people say, even the people who say you can learn something from anyone, I'm not convinced that they actually believe it.
That's funny.
And so I would just say, like, more so rather than just the individuals. Yes, I want you to be curious about the individuals that you're with, but I also want people to understand that, like, just back to that second idea, breakthrough probably doesn't come from expanding your knowledge in the field that you're already in.
Yeah.
And what we found this like scientifically over the years, I don't have any examples specifically to go off on this, but like it's when people have a specific, like crossover skill sets, when we get that connection from different fields and different areas, powerful, amazing things happen.
Oh, I tested that.
And so I would just say is like, if you're reading all leadership books, I don't know, maybe read some philosophy. If you're reading all theology books, maybe read an education book. Like, figure something out. If all the people who you're interacting with are experts in the same field, you're probably not going to come up with new ideas. You're probably actually going to convince yourself that your way of thinking is the only way to think and everyone else is wrong. And that's why the world is going to a worse place than it was before, because you've now taken the first step towards cynicism.
Yeah.
And the way to counteract that is to be curious.
And you hit it right on the head. And, you know, sometimes we haven't gotten to the pinnacle of where we want to be in our career career, whatever that might be, right? Someone may be listening today going, I feel stuck in the position that I'm in and I don't want to be here, but it's where I can tell you this, you can learn and be curious exactly where you are. You don't need to be placed in another environment. Doesn't mean you can't aspire to be in a different environment, but you can learn, man. I have done so many things in my life, man. And I'm grateful for everything. I was in restaurant industry. I believe to this day. I believe every person before they take their first job in a career move should have to be a line order cook or both would be great, or a server.
Yeah.
Because you will never understand pace of work until you do that job, and everybody's yelling at you for the thing that they need at that moment. You have no time to spare. You learn sense of urgency like you've never learned in your life. I am grateful for that time.
Yeah.
Right? I was a manager in a kitchen as well, so all the ordering process. So I knew how to predict future orders based on our volume, lead, lag. This is what I have. This is what I need to do to get to that.
Yep.
Right? All those things were all experiences. I worked in a place that did underground gas lines for 3 months, and that was enough because I had a jackhammer that I was jackhammering 90 pounds sideways, and I was about 140 pounds.
Every hammer I use is a jackhammer.
Yeah. It actually is. Good one. But I'm just saying, but in all those things, you know what I remember this day? There's a guy I worked with, and he was going to be a ditch digger his whole life, a great guy, right? But he taught me some things about work ethic that I never heard from anybody else. He's like, it doesn't matter where you are, what you are. You work as hard as you possibly can, and at the end of the day, when you take your hat off, you're going to be happy with your life.
That's good. That's great.
That stuff but I was asking him these questions at an early age, and that's never left me. And if you will never be sad if you ask questions in your life. Yeah. You'll learn from it.
I look at when I go through the last couple books that I've read, it was just fascinating because you would go I'm a pastor. They're all theology. I've read one leadership book. I've read one theological book. I read a book from a real estate agent. I read a book from a software engineer. Yeah. I read a book from an architect. Those are the last 5 books that I've read.
Yeah.
Is go through I think that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is we get so narrow in our field that then we get bored with it and we don't know why we're not advancing. It doesn't come from your field. It comes from other stuff. The truth is everywhere.
Yeah. And I have learned over time, and especially since I became a follower of Jesus, that God put all these different people on the earth for a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And so we can debate whether I can learn something from everybody within their specific gifting. I can learn something from it.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
So here's application. We've been off of the application pieces for just a little bit as we went through all our confessions because we were just struggling with the confessions and everything else.
It's good though.
So, but here's an application point, starter point for you. Write down 10 fields of study outside your own.
Ooh.
Just 10 jobs, whatever. Right? Insurance agent, realtor, barbershop, grocery store manager, small business, or whatever you got. Write down to engineer,
bazillionaire,
professional athlete, all these other things. Write down 10 fields of study after your own. That's if good. You are in a spot where you if you're already curious, don't worry about doing this. Just be curious. Keep asking questions, keep learning. But if you are in a spot where you can feel complacency start to set in, write down 10 fields of study outside your own and write down everything you don't know about those fields.
So good.
Just sit down. Realtor. How do you list a house? How do you make up a contract? How do you determine the pricing on a house? How do you negotiate people coming in? How do you handle contract negotiations? Just write down everything you don't know. And then I can promise you this. If you get done, you got 10 fields of study, maybe get a different piece of paper for each one. You write down everything you don't know. Your curiosity all of a sudden will be awakened.
This is brilliant.
There will be some questions on those papers that you go, some of them you're not going to care about. But as I was going through that, I went, how do they go about negotiating the contracts on a house?
Absolutely.
What are the parameters that they're looking through to determine? Because I'm sure there's some stuff. I've read Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference on Negotiations. But I'm sure there's some other pieces that I'm completely unaware of when it comes to contract negotiations.
I do this every week.
That I would like to figure out.
Right, and I do this. This week. Here's the two things I've done. I looked up how to pour the concrete on the. So we live in close to Tampa.
Yeah.
There's huge bridges. I was like, how do they get the concrete in the water and build the bridge?
How do they do that?
They have these incredible machines that pour these like forms that actually go down into the. It's a big convoluted thing, but it goes all the way down, and they have these machines, and they pour the
that's
concrete.
fascinating.
I wanted to know that. I'm driving across it, and so I didn't just in my head. I didn't go, well, I'm sure they know how to do it.
Yeah.
I looked it up and I studied it. The other thing is I was watching. I went to Disney the other day, and I was trying to figure out how this ride worked. The Guardians of Galaxy. It's this incredible ride that they started in COVID.
Seats move
the whole
during
thing.
it.
It's the largest, actually. I wanted to know. I'm like, it wasn't enough for me to just ride the ride.
Yeah.
How did they build this? It's incredible. And it can help me in some of the things we do in production eventually down the road. Like how they were able to create this experience for people. I didn't just go, someone figured it out and it was great. I think I watched 2.5 hours of YouTube videos from different people trying to explain the process because I want to stay curious.
Here's my just final note for this. Boring people think the world are boring.
Yep.
Okay. The way you combat complacency is by staying curious. And so start that today.
All right, if you're new to the podcast and curious and haven't subscribed yet, it'd mean the world to us if you did that now. So post about it, rate and review, or both. Won't believe how that helps get this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders just like you, trying to get better like us. We love hearing your stories of how the podcast is working in your life and business. If you have a story, visit Leading Hope, or if you're curious and want to ask a question, send that to us. We would love to hear from you. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.
Woo!